at some level, you have to feel a little guilty that you're ignoring this. You have to know that you're losing opportunity. You have to know people are going to call a different agent because you're not really trying to help them. You're not really staying in front of them. So instead of just losing that and getting nothing for it, why don't just be intentional?
Hello and welcome to Real Estate. I'm your host, Chris. This is the podcast where we talk about the intersection between technology and real estate. Today we're going to be talking about once you've used that technology to generate all those leads and you've been doing that for years, now what? What are the monetization strategies that is going to help you keep making money from that when you want to do something like retire or move to a new location? So I'm going to intro our guest, Nick, here in a second. But first, I got to give a little bit of FOMO feel to Todd Tremonte. So every year we do Real Growth Summit. Used to be named the Unofficial Real Geeks User Conference. And for the past 2 years, we've come away from that conference watching someone on stage and go, oh, wow, we have to have them on the podcast immediately. So second year in a row, Nick, just with that, tell us who you are and what you do, and it's going to become apparent real quick to people why we're talking to you.
Okay. So I like to start by saying I am a realtor. I got started in '06 in Portland, Oregon. I fell in love with the business. I was working 14-hour days, 7 days a week to go from 0 clients to 200 over about 4 years, and had great mentorship and moved to Portland, Oregon in '05, which was just like a magical time to move to a place that was growing dramatically and be a part of that story for 20 years. But why we're talking is because during the Great Recession, a lot of really good realtors in my office started to take other jobs, retire, move, and I figured out how to, what I call, adopt their clients. So I bought their books of business. They endorsed me to their clients, and all of a sudden, I spent 4 years busting my butt to get to 200 clients, and over the next couple years, I went from 200 to 2,000 clients, working way less, because instead of getting every client one at a time, I was getting 200, 300, 400 clients at a time from my deals with these realtors who were retiring, moving, changing careers, and it really opened my eyes to how you could grow way faster and still by referral. And I ended up writing a book about it called The Golden Handoff, and that's why I was at the conference speaking.
I was about to say I've got the book right here as
well.
We're going to be talking for the audience. We're going to be talking a lot about what's in this book. So definitely, first of all, let's just give them a plug right now. Where can they find this? Amazon?
Amazon, yeah, is the best place to get it. You'll have it in a day or two. Make sure you go to goldenhandoff.com as well. There's a ton of resources in the book. If you sign up on the website, you'll get a link to download all of those in a format you can edit. So you can grab the announcement letters, contracts, scripts, dialogues, all that, and put it into action very easily.
So we've already set the stage here a little bit because, I think some people are probably hearing, okay, hang on, this guy's like sort of growing by M&A. And then maybe another section of the audience is probably hearing, I'm thinking about retiring. Is this the exit ramp? Like, so if someone's reading this book, what perspective who are you writing it for?
It's written for both people. I struggled with that at the beginning because originally I thought I was going to write a retirement how-to book. And I was talking with a mentor of mine who wrote the foreword, a guy named Rick DeLuca, who's like a real estate guru, speaker coach guy, who coached me and my team for a while back when I was starting. And he said, Nick, the audience for all the people that want to do what you're doing by growing their business way is way bigger than the number of people who are looking for that retirement strategy, because hopefully you only need that once, right? If you do it right. But what's crazy to me is just that in real estate, people don't have a plan for their business, right? We were talking earlier, They buy rentals, you invest in the stock market, you do kind of those traditional things, but then there's this huge blind spot where people forget that their client relationships and their book of business is worth a fortune. but
Well,
they don't do
and we
anything with
talk
it.
about it all the time, whether it's like there's no such thing as a bad lead or there's gold in the old,
Yeah.
so the concept should be there. And I love that you're pointing directly at the database and like there is a monetary value associated with that whole thing.
Yeah, and then I think being aware of that at all is really the start of making a decision of do you want to do something with it or not. I hope that everyone does because, one of the side benefits that I didn't think of originally was the clients are actually really happy when their agent introduces them to someone else that can help them because they don't want
Right.
to have to go interview people again and ask for, all their friends at work, who do you use, do you like them, and go have meetings and interview people and try to find a new broker. If you've got someone good and they refer you to someone and say, this person will help you, they're great, that's who they're going to work with. And the clients are stoked. And so it's once you realize that there's value there, and once you realize that even if you don't care about that or don't need it, but your clients will value it, and that's why you're in this wonderful position is right. They've supported you your whole career and working with you. Um, the way to unlock it is you have to have someone to do the work, right? There has to be someone to show the houses, write the contracts, answer the questions, negotiate. There has to be another broker and a realtor involved. And so helping connect those two people is really the secret. And then it's so easy to deal with the money because it's all based on referral fees. And that's something that every realtor is super familiar with. And it's super fair because you only pay
and
when
I don't
it
want to
works.
give too much away yet because I want to give people a reason to listen all the way through the episode uh, because you have some really good answers on a lot of that stuff. But, maybe real quick, we go back because you said you started your career in Portland, Oregon in 2006. And then you essentially adopted this, what kind of sounds to me like an M&A type strategy, but you were buying the databases as the, sort of Great Recession was forcing people out. Can you talk to me through like when that, like the first time that you bought the first one and the challenges that you ran into on that, transaction, I guess?
Yeah, the first one was tricky. They actually said no the first time. And
Oh, really?
yeah, because I was doing pretty good. I was busy. I was starting to build a team. I didn't have a lot of people. I think I had a buyer's agent and a part-time assistant.
Yep.
I knew I needed to keep growing. Like I was interviewing people and thinking, those next steps that I needed to take, just because there's only so many hours in the day. But Renee, who's a character in the book, she's real. I think we just closed a deal with one of her clients or got a listing last week, and we originally started working together 14 years ago. But I asked Renee, hey, can I help your clients? I didn't really have a plan. I knew she had great clients. She worked at like really high-end stuff, great neighborhoods, referral based. She was a really good broker. She wasn't getting out because she failed. She was getting out because she had a second child and didn't want to have to work the hours it takes to be successful in real estate. And so she originally said no, and she gave her book of business to an agent that was kind of struggling, thinking that, oh, he's got way more time. But, I say this joke on stage all the time, if someone's bad at business and you give them more clients, they don't suddenly get good at business. They just do bad business with more people.
That's right.
But what really happened is there was just no follow-up, right? Like he didn't want to make the calls. When he got appointments, he would ask her to come to the appointment. So now she's working 2 jobs and splitting the money. And so after 6 months, she came back to me and said, okay, this isn't working. I should have hired you. And I said, well, here's the good news. The market's been terrible. Most people haven't moved. But even in that 6-month window from when she worked with someone else before I took over, when I went through and actually called everyone, because that was the first thing I promised her is, she was like, hey, this guy didn't call anyone. I was like, okay, I will call everyone in this list. I will sit at my desk and call 300 people, and I'll do it in like however many days it takes until I am done. And that's what I did. We found 5 or 6 people that were listed or buying with other agents in just that 6-month period. And that was in a time when the market was pretty slow, probably similar to where we are now in terms of deal volume, right? So imagine if the market's going gangbusters like it was a couple of years ago. That might have been 10 people that she's already lost because she's not in the game, but no one else is there to like talk to these people.
Right. And talk about like ROI on time spent, like 5 or 6 on 300, contacts, so I don't know, like 2%, I think that's a through point rate that most people will be pretty happy with.
Oh yeah, and I mean, you look at it like in a good database, 5 to 10% of the people on that list are actively thinking about buying or selling right now.
Yeah.
Like, you're listening to this, you've got a database of 500 people, 50 of them are going to do something. They're thinking about it. And so it's just the trick, right? In what you guys do a good job with, and really the secret is like, how do you manage 500 relationships to make sure you can connect with those 50 people who really want to talk to you? And that's the part that's hard,
Yeah.
right? If you only had to talk to the people that wanted to talk to you, it'd be very easy. Unfortunately, no one's cracked that code completely yet. Everyone's trying. There's billions of dollars being spent on that mystery, but that's why salespeople still get paid to put in the work to call people to figure out who actually needs me.
That's right. So it sounds like the first piece of learning there was really the person that you do the handoff to matters, which I think is probably intuitive. Like if you were going to, I'm thinking about the way that a lot of referrals in real estate manifest, where it's like, hey, Mr. Realtor that I've used before, I'm now moving to a new state. Who do you have? And there's thought that goes into that. Like it seems obvious that you would also put thought in who you're going to give access to your database, because there's like a level of credibility that's transferred between you and the person that's taking it over.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, who you choose to work with. So if you're the agent who's retiring or you're moving and you're going to hand off your clients to someone, yeah, you want to put a lot of thought into it. There's a whole chapter in the book about how to go through that process and make sure you have the right people. And, I sold my residential business a couple years ago, and I interviewed 10 different agents and teams when I did that. And, for a lot of them, these are people I knew personally, that I had done deals with, that had great reputations. Like half of them didn't want to take on that many more clients because they didn't have enough people to like do it well. So there's a sweet spot, right? Like you don't want someone that has no business and assume that they've got free time, because they're doing something wrong if they've got no business. You don't want someone that needed to hire 10 other people and is so far behind the curve that they can't keep up with what they already have, because they're going to be too busy. So there's like kind of a sweet spot of people that have the systems and tools and experience that allow them to take on some growth. You kind of almost want someone that has a track record of success, but they maybe have more agents than they really need, and they can kind of grow into it. That's really
got a little bit of
dream
headroom.
Scenario.
A little bit of headroom.
Yeah, where, hey, everyone, we're going to need to call these. We just got 500 new clients, and they don't go, oh no. You want them to go, oh yes. That they're excited. Like, you want people that like, oh.
Which, come on, if you're saying oh no to a bunch of new leads, like, might want to rethink the self-talk there.
But I'm telling you, dude, I don't know how many great agents I know that like will skip calls one week because they're already so busy, and they're like, oh, I know if I call these people, someone's going to want an appointment, and I'm so busy, and I haven't seen my kids, and I haven't been to the gym this week. People sabotage themselves, and again, you do get to a point. The reason why people have teams is because they run out of time.
That's true. Yeah.
They're better at getting business than they have the ability to handle it. And that's by the way, that's the problem you want. You don't want to be, oh my gosh, I've got the best systems, tools, people, but we have no one to talk to.
Well, I mean, this is a whole topic for another podcast, where it's like, great, you have done all the right things, and now you have the problem where you're sort of checkmated between, I have all this business, but it's requiring all of my time, and I really need to do some like deep strategic thought on like how to like accommodate the growth.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it sounds like, you've learned a little bit about like, the business that's receiving the leads, what they need to be. So I guess you must have gone through this first one and said, okay, this works for me. What did you start to look for? Like, how do you find people that are, either on the cusp of retiring or getting ready to move? And then what does that conversation look like when you approach them and say, hey, I'm interested in taking over your database?
You start with your relationships. So you start with the brokers you're friends with that start at your office. let your managing broker, principal broker, know that you're interested in helping people who are relocating or who are changing careers or retiring. And that's a great, that was like a huge resource for me. Was my team leader was instrumental in letting me know who wanted to talk to me, and to the point where after I worked with Renee and she was getting checks every month, it was a big success story for her. And so I had people coming to me wanting to sell their businesses to me
Mm,
because they saw that, oh, well, Renee's getting a check or two every month. Nick's doing all these calls. He's doing what he says he's going to do. So I want to work with him on this. And so it started to kind of snowball for me. And then we got to a point where I kind of had to say, we don't have enough people to keep up. We can't add 300 clients every 6 months. Not at the speed that the team was growing. We had to like kind of hit pause and go, okay,
yep.
let's just wrap our arms around what we have, because I don't want to screw the whole thing up by dropping the ball and not keeping our promise
Right.
to our clients and to those agents, right? Because those retiring agents become your best clients. They're referring you tons of people. And I think that so start with your brokerage is the lowest hanging fruit, and then the people that you co-op deals with. And there's a script I use that's very easy. It's funny because when you bring this up, and before I share this script, people have this crazy anxiety about calling people and asking them about it because they feel like they're going to get yelled at or people will be mad at them. And you don't want to call someone and say, hey, I see your production's way down. When are you going to quit? That would be the wrong way to
Yeah,
approach
that's
someone.
probably not a good move.
So if that's what you're thinking, don't do that. You should have anxiety about that
Yeah.
conversation. The way to approach it that's really productive is to say, hey, Chris, yeah, I've really enjoyed working with you on the couple of deals we've done. I've really admired how you've run your business and had this great career. I'm curious, what are your plans with your business when you're done selling? And what most agents will say is, that's crazy. I don't know. I kind of thought I'd just keep doing this, but I really am burned out, or I really want to relocate, but I've got all of these clients here and I don't want to start over again
Right.
from scratch. And so then there's your opening. How can I help solve your problem?
Yeah.
Now, the only person this doesn't work for, right, is if, Chris, you say, oh, I'm going to try to quadruple this business over the next 5 years, and then, I'm going to hire more people, and then I'm going to try to grow it more. And if you've got like this endless ambition
Yep.
and you're on this growth warpath, then that's not an opportunity for me to help you as take over your business. But the cool thing with the partial handoffs is, even if you were like, yeah, I'm kind of burned out, I'm not really digging in and calling all these people, I'm not really marketing, then I could say, Chris, well, what are the types of clients and the types of work you love doing? And you say, oh gosh, I love listings in these 3 neighborhoods because I know them. I know these neighborhoods better than any other broker. I have a great success rate. I love the price point. But man, I'm so burned out on working with buyers that want to buy in the suburbs, and I'm in the car all day and in traffic, and I hate it. And then I go, well, Chris, let me help all those buyers. I'm still growing my business. I'm excited about being in the car all weekend. I want to help those people.
I love this because you also just introduced it's sort of like a third option, because I think that
Yeah.
so far our conversation has been kind of binary. It's like either they're continuing in business or they're not. And that's how the conversation is structured. But I love this, it's almost like a plot twist on like an ISA type service or something like that, where it's like, hey, I can solve this problem for you in this other area. Like, let's talk about the things that you don't like doing and let me take them.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing, is like this solution has been staring me in the face for like 10 years. And I thought I was doing a great job by making my list of retiring agents and staying in touch, just like you do with home sellers. Like sometimes you call someone and they're ready to sell, and sometimes they say, hey, my kid just started junior high. Call me in 8 years when they're done with school and we'll be moving.
Right.
And so you put it in hey, every year I'm going to check in. Hey, do you want to move school districts? Or are you going to wait the 8 years and then I'll be here to help you? I literally had clients in my database where I was like, call them in, 8 years from now, because they'll be ready to sell. The kids will be off to college. But The real solution isn't waiting until someone wants to be completely done because two problems. One, it takes forever, and by then they've probably lost touch with a lot of their people.
Mm.
So if you can find someone when they're in that phase where I'm going to keep doing this for a while, but I'm not trying to grow, you can find what is that partial handoff option, right? What is the thing that, Chris, you don't want to do that I can take off of your plate? Because at some level, you have to feel a little guilty that you're ignoring this. You have to know that you're losing opportunity. You have to know people are going to call a different agent because you're not really trying to help them. You're not really staying in front of them. So instead of just losing that and getting nothing for it, why don't just be intentional? Make the decision to, you know what, I don't want to work with buyers anymore. I want to work on these listings. I'm really good at it. It gives me the time to be with my family and do other stuff. And so I'm not going to work with buyers. And I'm going to, but find someone that's excited about helping them, right? So you either build a team or you can kind of hack the team process with a handoff.
Maybe to rephrase, what you're saying there, like it sounds like your ideal prospect for entering this arrangement is like you're looking for someone that is entering a career transition, right? So
yeah,
and that way you as the agent that's trying to assume the business can be fairly well assured that there's like some freshness in the database, and it's not just cold because they actually quit calling their leads 2 years ago and now are just kind of like living off the sort of referrals that are coming out of it.
Yeah, if you think of like a career as like a rocket launch, right? So
right.
At the beginning, like you're just burning fuel and you're going straight up, right? And that's kind of like when I was new and I was doing 14-hour a day, 6-7 days a week, and I was loving it. It was like super exciting. I was learning the business. I was growing a business. I was hiring people. I was making more money than I ever made before. And that rocket goes up and then it kind of reaches like this part where it plateaus. And you can keep going, right? You might have a couple stages in your rocket. It might be 40, 50 years. I'm going to have a team of 50 people and we're going to do $1 billion in sales. Like there's people probably listening to this. There's a couple that are like that. But most people, their rocket goes up. They get to some point where they're kind of comfortable. And if you're at a point where you can ignore any clients or say no to business, you're at a point where you should find someone to take all the stuff you don't want to do. Because that's the sweet spot where like you basically your last booster's burned out and you're about to start doing this. And at that apogee, right, at that peak, that's when you have like the peak engagement with your clients and you can be intentional about, right. Hey, my rocket's going to do this, but this other rocket's going to keep going up.
Right.
And I'm going to put all my people on this rocket and I'm going to just take care of what I can handle over here without actually losing it.
I want to switch tracks here a little bit because like I think that, by now, if someone's listening to this and they're not like convinced that this is awesome, I don't know, rewind and listen to it again. But like when you're actually, and where I want to go with this is like the actual mechanics, right? So we always try and leave people with like, this is like very practical steps of like things that you can go execute on right now.
Yeah.
So, when you've got access to this database, someone says yes, like, hey, I'm in career transition mode. Nick, I want you to take over my database. Like, what are your first steps? When you get the, well, actually, maybe you can even just tell me, like, how does this usually manifest? Do they give you a login to their Real Geeks? Do they give you a CSV? Like, or here's a copy of my iPhone? Like,
yeah.
How's this unfold?
Yeah. So you make the connection, you sign a contract, which is basically like a referral agreement for a lot of people.
And I got a bunch of questions about that. We're going to come back to that.
Yeah. So I think what's really important is, and I like to do this off platform. So whatever platform you're using for your CRM, export it to a CSV where you have names, phone numbers, emails, and addresses. So just do a big export dump. I like to print it out. So even if it's like 20 pages long, just print it out. And get together with the retiring agent and you sit down and you go over it together and you take notes. So you're filling out notes on the clients. It is crazy how much the retiring agent will remember about these people.
Yeah.
And there will be a ton of people where they go, oh yeah, I guess I never wrote a note about that, but those folks talked to me about selling this year. You should call them first. Oh, I've been showing that guy houses. I don't know if he's really going to buy. I haven't checked with him in a while, but he was looking for X. And so you start filling in the notes. You also see if there's information missing. So you're like, hey, there's no phone number for this person. And they go, oh, it's in my cell phone. I just never updated it. And so you fill in the gaps. You learn kind of a story of who these people are and what they need. You help identify kind of your top 10, top 20, top 50. Who should you call first and follow up with the most? Um, in a perfect world, you also have a list of follow-up tasks for these people
Yep.
where like the agents has scheduled out into the future, like the person that's going to move in 8 years when their kids are done with high school, and you can plug that into your system. Um, in a dream world, you've got the same platform, right? So you're like, call up Real Geeks and you say, hey, can you transfer over this list and keep all of the notes in the native format? Or you have a shared login, or you add them to a team, however you
Yep.
facilitate that. If you don't, obviously you have to do an export import. You make sure that when you do that, you tag them and source them as these are Chris's clients so that you know which ones you're paying the referrals on and which ones are your clients. And then there's an announcement letter that comes from you, right? So it comes from Chris, who's the retiring agent, and says, hey, I'm partnering with Nick. Here's what's going on. He's great. He sells 1 billion houses. Does a good job. I'm moving to Florida, and you're in great hands. So whatever it is. So or hey, I'm going to be focusing on listings in these neighborhoods. I'm going to continue to help you with that. But if you're thinking of selling somewhere else, or you want to buy a place or invest, Nick's going to be partnering with me to help you with that. So whatever your scenario is, you explain to people what's going to happen and who I am. And then I call and introduce myself to all of the people I'm helping. So, hey, this is Nick Krautter. I promised your realtor, Chris, I would call and check in and see if you had any real estate questions or needs I can help with. That's it. One sentence. And you're not asking them to list their property or go
Yep.
look at homes or tell me what you want to buy today. It's, I promised your realtor I would call you and check in and see if you had any questions or needs I can help with. And that's how you start. And then if someone raises their hand and goes, oh, I'm glad you called, we need to move, that's easy, right? You just go do it. If not, have a couple stats about your market, have a little bullet point on some trends, and then let them know what's going to happen next. So you're going to get my monthly market updates. I do X number of classes a year. We do a client event. We would love to have you come and meet with the team. And so you let them know what's going to happen in the future. And from there, you just treat them like you treat your own clients. So they end up getting, again, different marketing lingo, the touches, the marketing pieces, however you describe all the different ways you stay engaged, over the course of a year and multiple years. You just treat them like you treat your own clients, and you help them out.
Yeah, and I mean these sound like fairly easy calls to make, right? Because it's sort of from your perspective cold, but from their perspective, they have a pre-existing relationship with that guy, like you're taking over the business, and you're not really pressing them for anything. You're just sort of trying to figure out where they're at.
Totally. And it's so warm. I remember the first time I did the calls, I was nervous that people would think that like they got sold like a pallet of old t-shirts or something. And,
Yeah.
and it's not like that at all, because remember, before I call them, Chris, like, we've sent them a letter on your behalf on your letterhead with your return address. So like you're hyping me up the whole time, right? So you're letting people know what's happening, which most agents don't do, right? So you're positive communication. You're thinking about how to help your clients. You're not just like leaving them high and dry. You're hyping up your adopting agent. You're explaining who I am and why you picked me, and you didn't just pick a random person down the hall. You interviewed people and you made sure, hey, I like how Nick does business, and he's going to execute this marketing plan that gives him the best odds of helping my clients as possible. You're never going to win 100%, but you certainly, your batting average is going to be higher if you just put in the work and you do the steps. And that's really just do the things that made it work in the first place, which is, calling people, emailing them updates, providing information, being a valuable resource.
Okay, so you're trying to be like be a resource to the people that you're taking over. And this is kind of like a question that I think we've probably talked about in other podcasts. But I mean, from your perspective, especially with the plot twist that you're taking over someone else's database, like what does that follow-up cadence look like, especially as those leads, maybe start to get cold?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a lot. It's a big lift up front because you want to have the communication in a couple different ways. A lot of times people ask like, well, how long is this handoff period, right? Where you're kind of co-marketing.
That's a great question.
It depends on how big your list is, right? And so I would say the bigger the list and the more you have going on, you might co-market for like a year. Now, from the retiring agent's perspective, they're not really doing it, right?
Yeah.
Like you and I might record a video like this. In fact, we might record 4 or 5 of these in one shot that you use throughout the year. And you can segment your database, right? So that, hey, I'm going to pull up a list of Chris's 300 clients, and I'm going to send Chris and Nick talk about the market video 1. And then 2 months later, I'm going to send Chris and Nick video 2, and then 3 and 4. And so maybe every other month, we're sending out a video just like this about a topic. And, some of them are going to be seasonal. Some of them are going to be maybe market specific. I'll probably bug you in January and we'll like, hey, let's look at the market report from last year and predictions for next year or this year, whatever, and say, here's what happened and here's what we think is going to happen. But from the retiring agent's perspective, they really don't have to do that much if they don't want
That's
to.
right.
With a partial handoff, though, the thing that's cool is like, let's say you're like me and like I love talking to my clients about real estate. I just don't want to have to go do all the showings and go to all the inspections, right? So I'm happy to have a conversation and do a buyer consultation and talk to someone and then connect them with the right agent that's going to help them, whether they're a buyer, seller, or investor. You can do that all day long and stay involved and stay engaged in the stuff you want to do, but not have to do the stuff you don't want to do. And so that cadence really is, well, one, I think you want to have a marketing plan that is part of your contract that spells out. Like, for me, it was really important that whoever took over my real estate business would call everyone on that list twice a year. And because my list was 800 people, we split it up over 4 agents so that we could have a good expectation of success. As opposed to one agent having to call 800 people twice a year, which is very, very different than having to call 200 people.
Right. And this is where I think, I just want to call out for the audience, we're sort of perspective shifting here, because what you just said, and let me repeat just to make sure I have it right.
Yeah.
When you left, so I'm assuming this is when you left the Portland market, you had a healthy sized database and you wanted to make sure that it got the attention that it deserved because you want the residual income from that database. And so you asked for it to be or orchestrated it to be broken up between several agents so that you knew that it would get the attention that it deserved.
Yeah, there's kind of like how when I ran my own team, I was the one that was like kind of the buck stops here. I'm responsible. At the end of the day, if something needs to happen and no one else is at the office, it's going to be me, answering the call, fixing the lockbox, doing whatever we need to do. But I knew that just from having done it for so long, there is a limit to how many people you can have relationships with and stay engaged with. Because these other agents, by the way, too, these aren't their only clients, right? They have other leads and clients and opportunities that they're helping and working with. And, my client list is a part of their success, but it isn't 100% of it. So for me, we felt like about 200 was like a reasonable number that they can handle, and that realistically, if you focus for a week, you can get through that list pretty easily in about a week. That's 30 calls a day for 7 days, you're done. And for some people that might seem like an enormous amount of calls. I lived on my phone, so like for me it was like, it seems like just a normal Wednesday.
I hope my aspiration for our audience is for them to think that that's not a huge amount of calls, because hopefully you're using, the online lead generation engine to, really fuel that, which means you're going to have to make the calls. You're going to have to like stay in touch with those leads that you're generating. We've kind of set this up like, okay, you've you've figured out who you want to talk to, you've figured out the actual transaction, the marketing plan, you're making the calls, you're having those conversations. But now I want to go back and talk about the contract, because that's really where, it's like, okay, yeah, we negotiated the contract up front, but now we've got this like income that's coming from it. And you've hinted at it a couple times that this is essentially a referral, like transaction split.